In this section, you'll be learning about how you can write UI test. And I'll also cover how you can write end-to-end testing and how there are multiple ways of performing end-to-end test. So over here, we have our UI test project. And this is very different from our unit testing project. This one uses XC test. So when you are creating a new target, you will see that if I add a new target and if I say UI test, it doesn't really come up. Here we go, UI testing bundle. So this is the one that you have to use to create a UI test. Now, UI test can be used to obviously test the UI. That's the whole point of UI test. But UI test, if you configure it a little bit differently, they can also be used as end-to-end test, right? Because this is actually going to launch your application and it can click buttons and you can control the whole interface. So it's going to be the best kind of test that you can write. The end-to-end tests are the best kind of tests that you can write because they will protect you against regression, meaning bugs. Now, when we're writing UI test, if we look over here in our to-do, the first thing that we are trying to do is we're saying user can calculate APR successfully for valid SSN. Okay, so that's what we are trying to test. Now, keep in mind that if we are only talking about UI test and not end-to-end test, then we should not be invoking the real service. We should not be invoking the real credit score API. We should be mocking it out because it's a UI test. And that's what we're just testing, just the UI itself, how it behaves. So let me go over here and we'll write something over here, okay, the test itself. Now the interface is probably already created. If you open up our content view, you will see that the interface is already there. It's pretty basic interface. It's nothing really going on. It will just be a text field, okay, where you can write your social security number. There will be a button that you can press, and it is going to show you some sort of an APR displayed on the screen. That's basically what we're looking for. All right. It's going to take a lot of time to load, so let me go back to the test. Function test. Now, since we're not using the Swift testing library, we have to begin with the word test. User can calculate APR successfully with valid SSN. Now, there are a lot of UI tests that you can actually write, but we are only going to be focusing on just a few of them to get you an idea. And when you're writing a UI test, you have to think of the interface. Okay, you have to think about how the application will be launched, what the user will see, what the user will interact with. You don't really have to think about like the inner details because you're performing a UI test. So I can say social security number text field. So I'm thinking about the UI part of it. And the first thing the user will do is use the SSN text field, and they will focus on the text field. So they will tap on it. Once they tap on it, then they can go ahead and enter some sort of a social security number, which can be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, whatever. Okay. Then we will get access to the button, the calculate APR button. So I'll say calculate APR button equals to app.buttons calculate APR button. Now all of these things that I'm typing, like what is this part, what is this part, these will be part of our content view. You can see that this will be part of the accessibility identifier. So I already have the accessibility identifier for the button. And okay, I have it for the text field, I have it for the text, and I have it for the message. So everything has an accessibility identifier. And you need the accessibility identifier if you need to refer to these things from your test. You can also look at our interface. It's actually quite simple. It literally just have a text field for social security number, and it has a calculate APR. And I can type something over here. Okay, and then it actually validates and makes sure that it is correct. So all of these tests, this test can also be written using a UI test. Okay, so we have the calculate APR button. Next, we can go ahead and tap the button. And what do we want to happen? Well, the APR should be displayed. So we will get access to the APR text. This is just going to be a text view. And since this function can take a little bit of time, I'm going to go ahead and say APR text.wait for existing. So we're just going to wait a little bit since there might be some animations going on, some sort of async stuff going on. And then we can actually just test that XCT assert equal, and we can test something out. So first of all, the thing we can test is, well, a couple of different things. So we're going to test it out, assert true, that the APR text exists. So that's the first thing. And next up, we are going to check XCT assert equal, I think this one. Okay. So what are we testing? Well, we're testing that there has to be some sort of a, APR that is being returned to you. So if I say over here APR text.label, and I'm suggesting that it should be like displayed 3.142 or something like that. But I think the problem over here is that the APR that will be returned, even from a mock, will be probably a random thing that is being returned, right? If you look at the mock over here, okay, so when we say get score, that's for the score part of it. You can see APR over here. APR is actually a random thing that is being returned. So maybe there's some calculations going on and we are actually returning, kind of like the random thing. So we can always check for the range itself. So if we go back over here, we can see that the APR label, or we can just check that the APR label is, if something is being returned. It's like not null or not, not empty. So that's another thing that we can check. Okay. But if we want to, we can always check for that it exists, like some sort of a thing is coming back. Okay. All right. So right now we're just writing this out, but we can actually, take a different approach also. So over here we're saying APR label text should not be empty. So something will be displayed over here. Since we're passing in a valid APR over here or a valid social security number, we can also check that if it's in range. Check if the APR is in range. Even though we have actually already checked it out, like in our unit test, but we can actually do it over here also. Now, if I run this application right now, it is going to launch my actual application. This means that we are going to be using the APR service, and in our content view, we're not even using the APR service. See that? I mean, nothing is really going on. So let's go ahead and launch the test, because the test won't really do much. It may be able to find the content view and all of those things, but when you click a button, it's not really doing anything. Okay, so let's see where it is running. Kind of hard to tell which one is running over here. We'll just open both. Oh, here we go. I think this is the one that's running. This one. I think it's just waiting now. And then it kind of just didn't really do much because the APR text.label is still empty. So it kind of failed at that point. All right. So why is it failing? Well, if we go back to the content view, we can see that there is nothing going on over here, right? I mean, there's absolutely nothing going on. So what should we do? Well, we can go ahead and first of all, we will try to access the APR service in our view. And there are multiple ways of doing that. One of the ways is just by accessing it through the environment value. So I can go over here and I can say entry var APR service equals to APR service. But now I need to pass in the credit score service. Now I can go ahead and pass over here a credit score service, which is a real credit score service. I mean, that's going to make an actual call. Now, if you're just doing a UI test, a plain UI test, then this may not be a good idea to do that, because this means that every single time you're going to run this UI test, just for the UI itself, it is going to make a call. So if you're just testing the UI and you're not writing an end-to-end test, then you should be passing in a mock credit score service. Okay? But mock credit score service is not really available over here. It's only available inside the test. One of the ways to make this accessible is just by going and adding the target. If we look at that file, and right now the target membership is only in the test, but I guess I can go ahead and add this one, which is R1, the actual app. So now if I go back, you can see that it's saying that we don't even want to import that. That's fine. And it should be able to find it now. Let's see. There we go. Okay, so it's now able to find it. But keep in mind that it means that whenever you are creating an APR service, it's always going to be using the mock credit score service, even for production, which is not a good idea. All right. So we'll have to fix that later. But if I go over here and go to the content view, now in the content view, I should be able to access that. I should be able to say environment, APR service. That's the one that we just created. APR service. It's already hooked up to the mocked credit score service. And right now I'm going to say APR service dot get APR, passing in the social security number. And this is going to return us the APR, which I'm going to assign. This is a try await event. There we go. And since this is the async event, I will have to wrap this up with a task. There we go. And if there's any error, we can actually also get the error itself. All right, so this is how it looks like now. Let's go ahead and build it. Now, if I go back to my test and I run the test again, let's see if it's this one or a different one. I think there are two of them are running. It's kind of hard to tell which one is which. Okay, we're just going to wait and see which one is the one that's launched. I don't think it's actually building. Let's go ahead and build it again. Okay, so build is failing. It's saying something about expectation. The error was thrown 6.8, but so basically it's not able to use the APR service over here. Argument type mock credit score service does not conform to expected type credit score service protocol. So it's not able to gather that information, right? And since I think it's added to both the targets, maybe that is the issue for this. All right, so let's go ahead and see how we can fix that. Now, I haven't really found a good solution to this problem. I know that one of the solutions can be that you go and you make everything available in the main target as well as a test target. But another solution which I also don't like is to just moving these mocks into the actual code. All right. So if I simply move this mock credit score service, and what I'm going to do is make sure that the target is not the test target. So I'm going to remove the test target from there. Let's go ahead and build it. So now inside the test, if I want to access the mock credit score service, it should just be available because of the import that we are doing. I don't really necessarily like this particular solution, and the reason that I don't really like this solution is because now we have these mock, the mock credit score service uh, inside our code, inside our production code. All right. So that's the part that I don't really like to have. Okay. I think this is just a duplicate, so we can delete that part. There we go. But if you have a much nicer solution, let me know, and I can add another lecture. So now let's go ahead and try to run this again. Okay, this is the one. Now keep in mind that currently it is hooked up to a particular implementation. So if I go over here, you can see that anytime you're going to be accessing the APR service, it is always going to be using mock credit score service. Now, this is fine for our test, that's fine, but not fine for production. Like when we are actually, using production, we want to use a credit score service. So we need to find a way that when we are running a test, then we use the mock credit score service. But when we are running our actual application in production, then we will use the credit score service. So in the next lecture, I'll show you that how you can accomplish that.